Well, hello, hello, hello. Good morning, Miss Bianca Menard. Thank you so. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Miss Bianca Caparuso. Speaking of that, I'm
Yes.
still trying to get used to it, but thank you so much for joining me here today in our little podcast. Thank you so much. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good deal. So, how does it feel that you left Louisiana to Florida and actually dodged a hurricane? It just seems weird to say that, you know?
Well, but like when I got here, there was a hurricane headed for Florida, which was like the same situation, and it ended up like missing us. So, it's not really surprising. I think
Yeah.
Florida gets just as many hurricanes as Louisiana. So,
Yeah. So how
yeah.
you liking Florida so far? Everything good?
Yeah, I like it. Like I said, it rains a lot here, which is interesting, but I guess it's a good thing because it's really hot. Um, but yeah, I'm really liking it. I mean, I like the area that we're in, and they got like a lot of parks and things. And me and
Yeah.
my kids and my husband love to be like outside, so we've had a lot of good opportunities to kind of experience the lay of the land.
We'll give it another month or so and it won't rain for like 3 to 4 months.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
but definitely. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. And today my whole focus that I want to talk on is this, like, what I feel like in our industry is becoming like a curse word, outbound
Hmm.
dialing. Like,
Yeah.
right? It's something that so many people are constantly trying to evade and avoid. And like for someone like myself, I was a field agent like you for many years. I switched to the phone only because Ron Powell forced me to. Thank God that he did. I wish I would have listened earlier, right? But I used to be scared of live transfers. I felt like they were too much pressure, like it moved too quickly, like I didn't want them. I don't know why it was in my head, but when I started selling on the phone, I used to call outbound dialer leads. We called them no name leads, so they were TV leads, but there was the only thing that was on there was a phone number. So they obviously were, very interested people.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned to outbound dial. But there was so much like peace in it for me because I felt a lot more comfortable. Like, listen, at the end of the day, for me, I always did everything and learned everything the hard way. So that was nothing new, but I found bliss in it because I could control my activity, which was everything, you
Mhm.
know? So the first thing that I want to ask you is a little bit about, how was that transition from the field to the phone? I know we had no choice when it happened because we were dealing with COVID and the whole global shutdown, but what was that like for you when you moved from knocking on doors to dialing?
I mean, I think initially I was a little scared, because I had just made, it was like my first full year. I had made six figures. And when I realized that I couldn't do it the way that I was used to, I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna, I'm not gonna be able to do this anymore. Like that's where my mind immediately went. But I work really well, I feel like, when I'm desperate, like if I'm under pressure, I seem to move better that way. And so, at when all that happened, I was really desperate. I was like I have to still make this work. And I remember just like taking all of the leads that I had, and at that time there was like direct mail and Facebook of people that I had never, reached in like the last year. And I just took that stack of leads, put it on my bed, um, because my kids were out of school, so I had to go lock myself in my room. And
Those days.
I put like a mirror in front of me, and I was like, I'm gonna just pretend like I'm in the home, but I'm on the phone, and not make it any different for myself. And so I just started doing that. I just started calling, and I'm like, I'm gonna make the stack smaller. And surprisingly, like the first week, I wrote like over $10,000 in business. And then the next week, like I wrote $10,000 in business, maybe a little bit more. And really it was a blessing in disguise because I realized that I could actually call more people in like a shorter amount of time, like not be driving all over, like not be wasting gas, like not be, driving 1 hour between one house and the other. And I realized it was honestly the best thing that could have ever happened for me. Um, when when I was forced into that situation. And I was like, I love this, and I remember talking to one of the, agents, Jen, and she was like just having such a horrible time. And I'm like, look, this is probably the best thing that really could have ever happened because, like, if you just commit to it's a mindset. Like, we have to get in the mindset, like, this is what we have to do to win and be successful. And there's no other option. Like, we have to make it work. And so
Yeah.
we kind of just navigated. Like, I didn't have a script. Like, I didn't really have anything. I was just saying the same thing that I would say if I walked up to a door, like over the phone with these people. And I had to make some like tweaks here and there, like make sure I, send in my badge and send in my credentials because I realized like that created more trust and things like that. But it was kind of just, figuring it out. And, I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, whenever there's a sense of urgency, we tend to perform better. I'm a lot like you. I always feel like I perform my best, and maybe not my best, but I definitely get a lot more done when
Yeah.
my back's against the wall. Like when I got
Yeah.
deadlines and stuff stacking on top of each other, and I got to
Hmm.
pay this bill or I got to get this done. Like I just find a way of focusing, as opposed to like when everything is going fine or there wasn't a lot of bills stacking up, I'm like, oh, okay, but when there's that urgency and there
Yeah.
is no other choice, yeah, we all have a tendency to just get it done, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad you said that. So
Yeah.
you get on the phone and you start selling, you start having some success. I want to say it was the week between Christmas and New Year's where you decided to, I want to get a shot and break the company's record for most production written in a week. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to get like, I always like to have some sort of challenge. Like I said, I feel like I work well under pressure. I've
Hmm.
always been that way. Like I procrastinate, I wait till the last minute to do things, and I don't know why I'm like that. It can be a blessing and a curse. But like I tend to get really like, I don't know, bored. And I'm always looking for, okay, what can I do next to like challenge myself? And so I had saw, a YouTube video of Joey that he had wrote, at that time I had think the most production I had wrote was like maybe 17,000 in a week. Um, and so I saw that he had,
Only 17,000. I know. So, oh gosh.
I know, I'm like, I don't even, but again, I worked, like I ate, slept, and breathed, this, I would go into the office at 9 o'clock and I would work till 9 o'clock at night, like 6 days a week. And I saw that he had the company record of, I think it was like 26,000 maybe at the time. And I was like, oh, I feel like I can do that, So I called Dave and I was like, hey, I want to beat this guy's record. And I didn't even know Joey at the time. Um, and he was like, okay. And I'm like, all right, so, what do I need to do? He's like, all right, well, this is how many leads you need to get and this is how much it's going to cost. And I was like, all right. So I got the leads. I think at that time it was like 200 direct mail leads and it was going to be like $5,000 or something like that. And I just, again, I put the stack of leads in front of me and I'm like, I got to make the stack smaller. And I just, kept track of my production the whole time. And like the cool thing is like everyone was encouraging me, like you can do this. Like, and I knew I had to do it because I'm like, if I fail, like I'm going to look like a loser, you know? And so I really challenged myself and I really showed myself like, wow, I really can do like anything. Again, I set my mind to. It is a mindset of like, this is what I got to do. This is what it's going to take to do it, and just like make it happen.
Yeah.
And I did.
So we got you 200 direct mail leads David had sent over to you.
Hmm.
Um, it just seems crazy because back in the day, like people, direct mail was always reserved for field agents, right? And telesales agents thought that oh, you can't work direct mail on the phone. Like that's just a TV lead thing or something like that. But, um, what was your thought process like going into that with that kind of like generalization or, that you can't sell direct mail on the phone?
Well, I had already showed myself that I could, right? So when I first had to sell on the phone, the only leads I had ever worked were direct mail and Facebook leads.
Hmm.
So, when I first started selling over the phone, that's what I used. And, and like to me, I thought it was like an advantage because here I had a card. that had their handwriting. And like, even when somebody would say, "Oh, I don't really remember that," like I would just take a picture and send it to them.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I guess that was me," you know? And so, like, to me, you can work any lead over the phone. You know, I mean, I feel like some may be, more ideal, but again, like, you set those own limitations in your own mind.
Yeah.
Like, I tell people all the time, like, if you say, "I can't sell final expense over the phone," or "I can't sell Facebook leads," or you're already setting a limitation in your mind. And, that's a powerful thing. Like, you start speaking that, then you're really not going to be able to. So that's a big thing for me.
So why? Just curious, and I don't. I might have asked you this before, but I don't remember what the answer was. But why didn't you work live transfers when you're selling on the phone in the beginning?
Well, I guess it wasn't a thing really back then.
I mean, but we had them.
Yeah,
We
we
had a lot
did.
of, yeah.
We did. I guess because like I was just so used to working those kinds of leads, and I was so used to like always financing leads, and I just was like kind of, I guess, used to doing it a certain way.
Right.
And I don't really like change. And so, and again, I always kind of like to challenge myself. And so I think that's why I just had already, always stuck to that, because I saw that it worked. It worked for me. And so that's really why I just continued on with it.
So we got you set up. David got you the leads that you needed.
Hmm.
It's the week in between Christmas and New Year's where nobody writes any business.
Yeah.
You took no live transfers, took direct mail leads, and probably some older leads that you were following up with too. And you went to work hard. And how much did you write that week?
I think it was like 27,000 and some change, I believe.
And you beat the record.
And I beat the record. Yeah.
You beat the record. Working outbound dialing, direct mail leads over the phone the week before Christmas, the week in between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
Most production ever written in senior life history at that time.
Yep.
And I still think now, obviously, you beat that record again, and somebody else beat that record. I believe so.
Hmm.
Um, but man, that's $30,000 just about in production in 1 week is
When
ridiculous
and
numbers.
the second time I did it, I believe
It
I
was
got
another holiday, wasn't it? Like Memorial Day or Labor Day or something like that. I
yeah,
remember it
one
was
of
a
those
holiday
weird
weekend.
yeah, one of those weird time frames. So that time I believe I had direct mail, but I think I did take
Some
some
transfers.
TV leads. I don't even know, I don't remember if they were transfers or not, but I did take some TV leads because I was just trying to get like, quick sales.
Right.
And yeah, I ended up writing, more production. But I can tell you, when I really decided to switch from like outbound dialing to doing live transfers, I remember I had gotten sick with COVID, and I was like down for the count for like 2 weeks. Like I just couldn't even like do anything, like mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Like I couldn't even work. Um, and I remember like staring at the stack of leads that I had on my desk, and I was like, I really don't want to call these leads. Like I just like I couldn't bring myself to
Yeah.
do it
I mean, it's a
because
grind to
it
call.
is.
It is, really is. It's a lot of work.
It is. And like once you're in the mode and you just stay in the mode, like it's easy to just keep doing that.
Yeah.
But then when you stop or get lazy or get complacent or whatever, it's hard to get back into that. And I'll be honest about that. Like I was like, I do not want to call these leads. And I remember David like saying, "Hey, why don't you at least try to take some live transfers?" You know, because again, I was still like not feeling well, like I was sick, and I was like, okay, I'll give that a try. And so I remember doing that, and I was like, wow, okay, I think I like this, you know? And so that's kind of what exposed me to that, but not because it was like easier. I just realized that, if I only have a certain amount of time to work, and I can do like 6 presentations in 6 hours, technically, I can get a lot more, accomplished.
Yeah.
And that's really why, I made the transition. And then, like, once you make that transition, then going backwards is also difficult because, like, taking live transfers is also like a mindset. You know what I mean? So I understand like what people go through, you know, kind of going back and forth in a sense.
So if you want to, because obviously in sales it's all about activity,
Hmm.
and we preach presentations. The
Hmm.
more presentations that you do, because you could dial all day long, whatever, but what it really comes down to is the number of presentations that you do.
Correct.
You know, do you feel that if you're incorporating outbound dialing into getting live transfers and you can do both, that you can more, or you can control more your activity?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been days where, like, maybe the transfers were slow. And so I, went on and, purchased a couple of leads off Leads the Way just to, like, because I can't just sit there and, like, not do anything or, like,
Right.
not talk to anybody for like a couple hours. Like, I feel like I only have a certain amount of time to work because I have, like, normally I produce from like this time to this time, and then I help agents in those other times that have blocked off. So, like, I have to get the max amount of production during that time. So I'm not just going to sit there and wait for a live transfer. Like, I'm going to go at least, I have a certain amount of leads that I want to buy per day. And then I have a certain amount of presentations that I like to do per day. So if I'm not getting them from transfers, I have to get that some other way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, then obviously, here at Senior Life, we have this phenomenal platform called Leads the Way. That even if you don't get a live transfer, you can still basically get a lead in real time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an hour old. You,
Yeah.
you know, look how hard we have it. But but what are the types of conversations that you have with yourself in that? Now granted, I think your head is on straighter than most anybody that I ever met before in this business. I mean, the person that you were when David Price recruited you to the person you are today is like daylight and dark. I mean, you've came
Yeah.
such a long way, and you really understand this business.
Yeah.
So obviously for you, like what are those conversations that you have to, okay, well, live transfers are a little slow today. I got to get these leads. Or now we just had that little, almost a week outage with that glitch in Leads the Way. So there's no live transfers currently. Like, what do you tell yourself when you just I got to just buy some leads and I got to outbound dial? Because like you said, there's only so much time and you're not willing to sacrifice that activity.
So, and I think, like you said, it is a conversation. So I have like this activity tracker, right? So I have like goals that I set for myself every week. I have like a certain amount of leads that I want to get, and then a goal that I set every week. And so, you know, I I have to okay, I have to buy at least 5 leads today. I have to do at least 5 presentations. And so, like, okay, Bianca, you can't get a live transfer. Like, you need to be doing something. And granted, you might spend a little bit more on leads because you're not, able to talk to every single lead that you buy. But I do believe that it will all work itself out, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and again, you just have to have these like self talks with yourself because, like, at the end of the day, like, no one's gonna make you do it, and you know, no one else is gonna provide for me but me. And if I don't write business, I don't help families, I'm not gonna get paid. So, like, at the end of the day, I need to get paid. I need to work, and so I know that activity equals results. So
Yeah.
as long as I'm dialing, I feel like I'm going to get results. And I have like little, daily things and intentions that I say to myself, like, I thank God that, I'm going to help 5 families today. Like, I thank God that my agents are going to help 5 families today. Like, I thank God that people are answering the phone. Thank God that people are being open and receptive to the help that I'm trying to give to them. And I just set those like positive intentions because I feel like sometimes, like, let's say you called all day yesterday, right? Maybe you got hung up on, maybe you got cursed out, like it was a bad day. And then what people do, because I've done this, is like you bring that into today and you're like, you have call reluctance. Like, you don't want
Yeah.
to get on the phone. Because again, your brain is telling you, like, fight or flight, this is not good. Who wants to get hung up on? Who wants to,
Right.
but again, you have to like retrain your brain and like try to look at the positive of what could happen if I just do this work. Like take the emotion out of it, just do the activity and like trust the results. Um, that the results are going to be there. Everything, always works itself out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've always been very good at that, and always listening to David. I remember early David used to tell you and Jen, like, don't think, like, let me do the thinking for you. Just do it. And I
Yeah.
think that little piece of advice that David gave you guys or you ladies, right? Because back in the
Mhm.
day, I think he only recruited females. It seemed,
Yeah.
but all you girls,
They work
and
harder.
oh, there's no doubt. But he told you that piece of advice is let me do the thinking for you guys. Just go do the work. And I think that was one of the greatest pieces of advice that he could give or that he gave you all. But the best thing is that you listened and you do it because that's just what it comes down to, is that activity. However we get there, it doesn't really matter so long as we get there, you
Yeah.
know? So obviously, when we're receiving a live transfer, it's more of a hello, can I help you? Which
Hmm.
I don't think really requires much skill. But when we're
Yeah.
outbound dialing, we're going to have to deal with some things in order to um, do our presentation, right?
Hmm.
And for me, I learned a long time ago, you let me know if you think I'm wrong, but I always felt like the ones that gave me the most resistance on the front end were the easiest ones to close and the ones that stuck with me the longest. And what I mean by that is, when I was in the field and you were this, the ones that I had to really push to get into the door
Hmm.
usually were the nicest. Even if they were rude at the door, when I sat down, they were the sweetest. They were the ones cooking
Yeah.
for me, feeding me, giving me drinks, coffee, tea, giving me referrals. I'd leave with care packages, the whole nine. But the
Yeah.
ones that would just let me in, even though I sold them, I feel like that business didn't stay because I always felt that if somebody was so easily persuaded, they're going to be very easily persuaded from the next guy or girl that comes and sees them. And that's also one of the reasons why I steered away from live transfers because you get a lot of yes people. People say yes a lot more. But when we're outbound dialing and we're dealing with certain types of objections, the front that people put on, because that's what I think it is. It's like, I always use that analogy when you walk into a shoe store, someone says, can I help you? You say, no, thank you. I'm just looking. We all do it. We have no idea why, but it just happens. So when someone calls you out of the blue, they say, what? No, thank you. That's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. You got the wrong name. That person died 10 years ago, or whatever the case may be. So what are the
Yeah.
types of skills that you have been able to acquire to make sure that you can get through that those little bit of we'll give a little shout out to Grant, little RDRs, right, little reactionary defense responses,
Yeah.
that you can get through
Yeah.
that. What are the skills that you had acquired to kind of get to the point where you can do your presentation? Because I think that really the only difference between a live transfer and an outbound dial is that little part in the beginning, that little greeting, the first 30
Mhm.
seconds. You get past the first 30 seconds, it's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would think that really it comes down to like agreeing, ignoring, and moving forward. You know, um, a lot of times in the past, like before I really had those skills, if someone would say like, "Oh, I don't have time," and I'd be like, "Okay, when would you like me to call you back?" Or if they'd say, "Oh,
Tell me
just
that's
send
not
me,"
the biggest trap in the world.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, or if they would say, I just mail me the information. Like, I don't want to be on the phone. Like, just mail me the information. Like, I'd be like, I didn't know what to say, and honestly, I believed what they were saying was the truth. And, again, learning from Grant Cardone, like, just to be like in agreement and kind of like ignore it, don't really pay it much mind, and then like be persistent and move forward. Like, I realized that like once I did that, like I took away that objection or whatever you want to call it, its power. And
Yeah.
a lot of times they were like, oh, okay, this person, isn't going to easily give up. And like, they would just follow where I would lead them. And so I realized like, okay, if I just agree and kind of ignore it and move on, like a lot of times it doesn't even affect me trying to close.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. And then like making sure that when I would hear something that I didn't know how to overcome, I would write it down and then I would come up with a response, and then I would like practice the response to where if I heard it, like I would have something to say. Because a lot of times when people can't overcome those things, it's just because like they get stumped. Like if
Yeah.
someone says, "Oh, I'm not interested," they're like, "Oh," like I don't know what to say. And so, really training and practicing on that, I think really, really helped me. Um, so I think those were really the two main things. It's just like agreeing, ignoring, moving forward. And then like if you can't overcome something, like write it down and, come up with at least three responses to where next time you hear that, like you have something to say.
Yeah, yeah. But
You
I
know?
think that if you can follow the advice, or if anybody can follow the advice that you just gave, which was agree, ignore, and move on, you almost don't even have to learn any other skills or exactly how to overcome things because, like
Yeah.
you said, most people will just go in the direction that you take them. But
Yeah.
if I'm going to sit here and make a big deal about the fact that you're not interested, you already got protection, this isn't you, mail me something, call me later, all of a sudden we're making this big deal out of something that it's just something that people say, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've
Yeah.
all done things like that before. And, I think if we're honest with ourselves, it doesn't take much to change our minds when we say that also.
Yeah,
You're
for
walking
sure.
through the mall, someone's, oh, they got the little curling iron things. They want to straighten your hair or whatever the case may be. Like, it's not going to take much. You're initially going to say, no, 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 no. But if they're persistent, and and they're going to get you in there.
Yeah.
But what are we really fearful of? We're fearful that shit. I might like this. I might do a really good job. Like, remember they ball up the wrinkled shirt, and in 30 seconds, not even, it's like
You don't
totally
want to be
ironed.
sold. You don't want to be sold. Like
You
you
don't
don't
want to
want to
solve, but
have
why?
to.
But if we have
Yeah.
things that we know is going to better our lives, why do we fight that stuff?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And something else that I learned, well, two other things, right, that I'll say that I think will help people is like make a joke out of it. You know what I mean? Like if someone says like I'm not interested, well, Miss Mary, of course you're not interested. Like how could you be? I hadn't even gone over the information with you yet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
at, at least let me go over it with you, and then hey, if you're not interested, I'll hang up on myself. Like
yeah.
make light of it. Like don't take it so serious because like I think that's what really hurts people also. Because if you can make the person laugh, like and
You got a chance.
set yourself apart, I think that's important. And then also too, like you're not going to attract who you want. You're going to attract who you are. So like,
Mm,
are
that's
you the type
powerful.
of person that, you know, does that to people when they call you? Because if you are, then you're gonna have a harder time overcoming that because it would be hypocritical for you to try to make someone stay on the phone with you when you wouldn't stay on the phone with someone that called you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I always say that there's truth in every objection that you
Yeah.
can't overcome. Even if it's like something as simple of, oh, well, it's too much money. I can't afford it right now. Well, you got to ask yourself the question, do you have a policy with Senior Life?
Hmm.
No, no, no. I can't afford it right now. I'm just starting out. Well, if you can't convince yourself, how are you going to convince others? You
This
know
is
what I'm saying? But what I also feel is that even if you don't have the money, even if you already have plenty of insurance, if you can though convince yourself, that means you could convince anybody.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, and if you are the type of person that never listens to anybody's pitches, start listening to people's pitches because then at least that way you have some base and some foundation of truth
Yeah.
that you can basically because it is a transfer of feeling, right?
It is.
And it's really hard to convince somebody that you're not convinced of yourself.
Yeah. That
So
is.
if you're the type of person, I got to sleep on it, pray about it. If that's your MO, and someone says, "Hey, Bianca, I got to pray about it. I got to think about it." It's like, okay, well, that's what I would do. So I guess it sounds legit. So I'm
Yeah.
going to let you go, and I'll
Yeah.
follow up with you tomorrow. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But
Yeah.
if you're the type of person, like I'm the easiest one to sell.
Me too.
The easiest. I will say yes to everybody. And I wasn't always that way. Obviously, it makes it a little bit easier to say yes when you have some money too. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, like I say yes to just about anything,
Yeah.
because that way I expect people to say yes to me because if it seems right, if it makes sense, I say yes. If it doesn't seem right and it doesn't make sense, I say no.
It's kind of funny. So like, we moved into this new neighborhood It's a new development, so there's always people like coming to our door.
Oh
And
yeah.
my husband is like the one, like, you cannot sell him. And I'm always like answering the door for these people and like letting them talk to me.
He
And
comes home from work. You got the whole neighborhood in there, giving you.
he's like, don't answer the door. I'm like, look, I
Yeah.
know how it
Honey, I
is.
got us a new alarm system today. I got set up with new cable providers. And oh, by the way, we're Jehovah's Witnesses now. Like, you know?
I know it's bad, but like I try to be the type of person, like, I have empathy for people, especially people that go door knocking. Like, man, I got to give it to you. Like, I'll at least give you the time of day. I might not necessarily buy it, but I'll give you the time of day,
Yeah.
um, because I know how that is. So, you know,
Yeah. It's funny how that mindset is really everything. So,
yeah.
in kind of getting towards to wrapping up a little bit, I mean, I think people got some great advice, but like, what are some of, we just had this little outage, I'll call it, right? Some API or I don't know, some weird technical IT term that I kind of know what it means, but I don't really know what it means. For me, it's like click a button, you can fix it. I don't know what takes so long, but whatever. Little blessing in disguise. Everything happens for a reason. But what are some things that you learned during this little outage of live transfers?
So that, can you hear me? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I got you. I think you got a
Yeah.
phone call
That
maybe
I
or something.
relied too
Yeah.
heavily on live transfers, and that, sometimes when I go through stuff, I realize that it's not necessarily for me, but like I get to see like what my agents go through. A lot of my agents are not in the position that they can take live transfers. So like going back to that, like having to dial, like I see what they go through, and the mental
Yeah.
challenges and things like that. So I realized, like, okay, I can't just rely on live transfers. That was the one thing. And that, any lead, is a good lead. And, one of the days I was like, I think I had bought like maybe eight leads, and nobody had really answered. They were like, oh, I can't talk right now or whatever. So I went back I had a bunch of like leads that I had like stuffed in my calendar that I've been meaning to call back. And so I just called back and was like, hey, we had spoke a couple months ago about possible final expense coverage for you. I was just checking to see if like you had found what you were looking for, like, were you still looking? And like a lot of people were like, oh, I'm still looking. So I got an opportunity to like represent, and I was able to close like one policy that I had realized I had never even presented to the guy. Like, we had played phone tag, and I sold him a policy, and then another guy that I was following up on. And so I got an opportunity to, do some follow ups on, and people were like, hey, thank you for calling me back, because you said that you would, and I appreciate you for, keeping in touch. Even some of them like still weren't ready, but they were like, hey, I appreciate you for like following up. So I realized that I need to
Yeah.
do that, because sometimes we're like always focused on like new leads, new leads, new leads, and I totally agree with, it's good to have new leads, but there's also gold in the people that maybe weren't ready, or again, maybe you could never get in touch with them, or whatever the case was. Timing is everything. So remembering to maybe set time aside to do those follow-ups.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I mean, we
Hmm.
always got to be moving. And I think we can all agree with this is that we can't operate at 100% for 8 to 10 hours a
Yeah.
day. Nobody can. We'd be all drive ourselves crazy. But, for the most part, with a couple of breaks, like we could operate at a very high level. And in between live transfers, that like follow
Hmm.
ups are huge. A lot of people don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So imagine what your business would be like if you took as many live transfers as you could, you purchased leads that forced you
Hmm.
to outbound dial, and you followed up regularly on every single
Yeah.
lead all the time. I mean, I think it's an unbeatable strategy, because then now you're not reliant on live transfers. You're not reliant only on outbound dialing. You're not reliant only on, follow up. And I think it just makes for like a perfect storm in a good way when you can put those three things together. And for me, here at Senior Life, a lot of the times we're running specials of very cheap leads where you can get 100 leads for
Hmm.
$1,000. Like, I don't care the type of lead that it is. I got 100 people that are
Yeah.
interested. You know, and if I can keep adding more wood to the fire, like eventually those people are
Yeah.
going to say yes.
Yeah. You have
You know what I'm saying?
stuff in your
So
pipeline.
yeah, and just got to be filled. And I think what a lot of people do, instead of getting the new stuff, they're just following up on
Yeah.
the old stuff, and they do that in between, which could work, but that's I don't
When
think it's
also
enough.
too, I think it's important that people get referrals. You know, so
Yeah.
I had a couple of referrals that I wasn't able to get in touch with. So I reached out to them. So yesterday I actually closed a referral, you know? And so I think that too, like I have a little book of referrals that I keep. And so sometimes I don't always get to call like all of them right away. So, if let's say, the leads the way is down or whatever your normal operating system, isn't functioning, you can have a day where you call on referrals, that's free
Yeah.
money in my opinion. And I literally close like almost 100%. I would say probably like 95% of the referrals that I get, I close. It's very rare that I get one that I don't close. So that's, easy money to me. Um, and something else I do want to mention that I tend to suggest to my agents is you have to have a system for outbound dialing. So you can't just like call the leads and be like, okay, nobody answered. Like, I don't know what to do now. You have to, call at different times of the day, right? Like if you like make notes, right? You called this stack of leads in the morning, call them in the afternoon, call them in the evening, call them on a Saturday, call them on a
Hmm.
Sunday, right? Um, I think the statistic is people don't answer until you've called them between 5 and 12 times. So if you're discouraged after them not answering on the first time, again, that's normal, right? So realize that that is normal, and that that's one thing you got to pay attention to. And then also, like if I call people from like my regular number and they don't answer, then I'll call from like a burner number, right? So you have to keep in mind that if like I have a 337 area code. So if someone calls me from California, I'm going to be less likely to pick up the phone. Okay. Now, if someone calls me that also has a 337 area code 3 times in a row, I'm probably going to answer because that's how they get
Yeah.
me, honestly. The telemarketers, they call from, 337 numbers. They've gotten pretty smart. Um, so like I'll change my number. That tends to help. I always call 3 times. I always leave a voicemail. I always send a text. You've brought this up many times. I think it's golden, but send a video message of yourself. Of letting them know that you're not just some spammer. You're actually a real person, and they called in, and you know hey, is there any way that I can help you? So you have to get creative and really think outside the box to get these people to answer. And it may take months, right, before someone answers, but like, don't give up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this just sounds like too much work, Bianca. I just want to sit back and get called. I want my phone to ring. I don't want to
Yeah,
call
okay.
anybody.
And that's good, right? But again, then people complain that they have to spend more money for higher quality leads. But again, you're spending more to not have to do the work. So, if you
Yeah.
want a
Yeah.
cheaper lead, just know that you're going to have to do more work to get that person on the phone. But at the end of the day, like to me, you have to learn how to do the basics. Like you have to learn
Yeah.
how to do both. And do I like doing those things? No, I do not.
I don't think
Yeah, like
anybody
let's just
enjoys
be
it,
real here. But like at the end of the day, if I have to do it, I'm going to do it because,
but I like what it does to
yeah.
my bank account. I just don't,
And
you know what I'm saying? So it,
your
it may not be
character
the
too,
best.
like it's character development. Like when you have to do things that obviously like no one else likes to do, it does something to you. You're willing to do
Yeah.
what the other 99% of people aren't willing to do, and at the end of the day you will win.
Yeah, and that's why you're in that 1% because you are willing to do what the others won't, and so many others, and I got to say that it's always a pleasure to work
Yeah.
alongside with you. You've been probably one of the most coachable people that I've ever seen come through this business. You question things, but not really. You're okay. That makes sense. Well, someone more successful, like David's telling you to go do this, and you'll go do it first, and then kind
Yeah.
of ask some questions later. And I wish more people would have that
Yeah.
ability that you have.
And
So.
I
You know,
just want
I,
to
I
say this, like, you know, that is a acquired skill that I've had to learn, learn how to be coachable. And so sometimes I feel like when people
yeah,
come here, you have to learn how to be coachable. You have to pour out your cup and realize that you don't have all the answers. I was actually talking to an agent. This was like a couple months back, and I was like, they weren't seeing results, and I was like, hey, it could be this, could be, and they're like, no, I don't think it's any of those things, and I'm just like, okay, well, you're not having the success, so you might want to take suggestions from somebody that maybe that's been doing it longer. And something else that I've learned from Grant Cardone is like, take responsibility. Like, if you're not where you want to be, like, it's my fault. It has everything to do with
yeah,
me. If I'm not closing, it's my fault. If I'm not converting, it's my fault. If I'm losing business, it's my fault. And if it's my fault, I'm in control of how to change it. And I think more people need to accept responsibility for where they're at in their business and in their life. And then you have the power to change that.
yeah, yeah. That's a very strong
Yeah.
message and a great piece of advice. But I mean, I really appreciate you jumping on with me today and kind of talking through some things. It's nice to see you happy and enjoying your new Florida residence, your new
Yeah,
homestead. That's
my
really cool. I'm
my
so
I
happy for
actually
you and
have
your
like a
family.
home office now. I was like working from my kitchen table for, you know.
I remember you had a really nice office chair pulled up to your kitchen table.
Yeah.
I used to love seeing
Yeah, it's nice to actually
that.
have like an
The
office,
things we
and
do.
I think but again, I work for that, so.
Yeah, there's no doubt you work hard. You deserve all the success and a whole lot more. So
Yes,
thank you
sir.
so
I
much,
appreciate you
Bianca.
for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Any last little words you want to give everybody before we head off?
Winners win and losers lose.
Hey, this is why I love you, B.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right.